We made this record, Life Switch Pageant, at the end of probably 4 years of cumulative hard work on the road, full-time, playing. You know, we finished the tour, and then the next day we go in the studio, or we finish the record and we go on the road. And the title comes from a Pink Panther film, and Inspector Clouseau, he falls out of his car.
It is all part of life's rich pageant.
Yeah, and all these mistakes are part of Life's Rich Pageant. He can do the accent better than I. And so that was our code word for the last year on the road. Whenever, like, oh, we'd show up and the PA wouldn't function, or when the bus broke down in where was that, Elkjaw, Wyoming? So
yes.
we're for 13 and a half hours. It was great. We got on the bikes, rode around for a couple hours. It got back
on the interstate.
On the interstate, pedaled up and down. And that's the day that we watched that film, I think. In 13 hours there, you have to do something. So, Life's Rich Pageant, that was our phrase for the year. Situation normal, all screwed up.
It fits.
And it fits. But it also, you know, it's as stupid as it is, it's also kind of a neat way to look at life. Sure, there are problems, and everyone's, you know, I mean, and the record is a bit more political. Maybe it confronts those problems, and yet, well, you know, this is what we got. I mean, life or death, I don't know. I feel like death today, but life is what I choose, you know.
You can't take it too seriously, so we don't. Don Gaiman, the idea behind that was we wanted to throw everything and the kitchen sink on this record. We have some pump organ and accordion, everything we could think of. And after listening to John Cougar's records, we knew that Don would be able to separate all those things where you could still hear all the instruments, and yet we could throw every little noise we wanted to on there. Yeah. We did it in Bloomington because Don designed it. He built the studio, designed a studio for John after one that he likes in L.A. And naturally, he felt very comfortable there and thought we should go record there.
Yeah. It was a neat experience. Don taught us a lot about editing, not editing with tape, but editing ourselves. So that in the past, my idea is always to put 37 guitars on every song and have them play all the way through. And as much as I like that, you know, I like that real thick sound.
It's not always necessary.
Yeah, he told me to make a more dynamic record, you know, little things like, well, just put the 12-string here and put the fuzzy one here, but don't have it go all the way through the sound. And it does make it more dynamic.
It's like a review I read not too long ago. It said that Don has little tolerance for anything that doesn't advance the song, make the song better. And he works real well with us in that sense.
Yep.
We needed it.
Barry Manilow, that's what we're going for. You know, it's the Copacabana sound, and we couldn't get it, so we decided to make a rock and roll record. We wanted it to have a real good hard edge. We wanted it to rock more than say the last one had. And the engineer, Greg Edward, the engineers never get enough credit, but he is really a master at what he does, and he gets great sounds, and he really adds an edge to it. And he doesn't pull any punches. You know, we'd come in and go, terrible guys, horrible, rotten, go back and do it again. And we'd just be cracking up because everyone else. The joke about Los Angeles is, you know, you push the playback button, go, yeah, you guys, wonderful, great, and you pick, they get here, you go, God, this guy's a schmuck, what a loser, you know, and he'll say it to your face, which I really liked, because quite often, you know, people go, yeah, it sounded pretty good, you know, and when in fact they're thinking, boy, that stinks.
Well, that's what you need in the producer and the engineer, somebody to tell you when it's not good and when it's not going right, and Greg's the man for that.
Yeah. we did want to make this record a little bit more fun, you know, and in a year when, God, we're sending arms down to South America and putting cruise missiles in people's yard and that kind of stuff, fun might be kind of an outdated concept, but we want it to be a little bit looser than we're normally known for, because people tend to think of us as this mystic art band that, you know, please give us another record, when in fact, we're just like four guys, or whatever.
whatever we are. And it was a lot of fun. Don is extremely easy to work with, and he believes in having a very relaxed method of recording, and we enjoyed it. And it shows, I
think. Michael felt that this year he wanted to say a few things that were a little bit more pertinent to the world, as opposed to writing more, I hate to use this word, but it's not a negative, solipsistic way. I mean, the world doesn't revolve around us, and we know that, but it's easier to express yourself personally rather than express yourself about, you know, Red China or Russia. I think this year was a good year to maybe question a few things, because nobody seems to be doing it. You know, why are we sending arms to, you know, to South America? Well, aid to the Contras? Why? You know, so you're not going to hear that on the record exactly, but there's a little bit more of a moral question in this record, and he wanted people to hear that, to understand it. As a matter of fact, he went out of his way to
supply reviewers with like copies of lyrics and stuff. You know, they'd call up and Michael would get on the phone and say, no, this song is about this, it's got this word, this word. It's still not real narrative. I mean, we're not going to be Raymond Chandler where, you know, you wake up and the story goes on. But
and the last thing we want to do is preach to anybody. That's annoying to me when a band tries to, you know, by and large, musicians aren't the most well-informed people in the world. And I resent it when they try to tell me, you know, what should be in the world. But I think basically Michael was just telling people to be aware, to be aware that there are things going on around you that you might not be happy about if you think about it.
It's funny because the record, without, you know, we write the songs and Michael's coming up with lyrics and we're helping him edit and maybe rewrite things, but, you know, he's responsible. About 3/4 of the way through the writing, I realized, gosh, this is kind of a real moralistic record in a way that isn't, you know, we're not waving any flags or preaching to the condemned or anything like that, but it's a record that has a lot to do with moral chaos. I mean, we're living in a time of not real, well, I mean, I don't know, 40 people a week disappear in Guatemala. Why? Where did they go, you know? Well, and why do we support that, you know? It's a real funny time. These are times of prophecy. That's what some reggae song I used to really like. These are times of prophecy, Mom.
Aye and aye, Mom.
You know, and it's, you know, I mean, I'm not religious, but this is a really weird time we're living in. You know? Well, this song, Superman, I used to manage a record store, and it was like a really hip, little teeny record store, sold used and rare records. And I would play anything. You know, you'd see a record, you got what a weird title, Dr. Morrison's Lollipop Shop. I bought it.
It must be worth playing.
And it was horrible. But in the same day that I got that record, I saw this record by The Click, Superman. And I kind of liked the idea of superheroes in songs, you know, Green Lantern and that, what is it, Electric Banana?
Yeah.
You know, whatever that one was. You know, Donovan. You remember Donovan? Donovan, he's coming back.
Oh,
you know,
boy.
I don't know you know.
Where did he go?
Time for the Donovan revival. But I gave Mike a copy, and we've both loved that song for 6 years. This is since 1980. This song has 2 chords, and it took us that long to work it up. and Mike learned it, and Mike and Bill were doing it, and I just started playing it, because it is only 2 chords, and we just kind of did it. And Michael loved it, and he said,
great,
let's
try
do
that,
it.
Yeah.
And maybe in the past, we would have felt, gee, that's really stupid, you know.
And it is.
It is.
But that's okay.
But who cares? Yeehaw. You know, I mean, I think I like this record because there's some stuff that, you know, it does look at the world maybe a little bit more and maybe it's serious. And then you've got Superman, which is one of the coolest dumb songs ever written. And we have Underneath the Bunkers, which is this...
even dumber.
drunken Greek samba, you know, with Michael singing his Rudy Valley.
Winchester Cathedral.
You know, so... You know, it's all mixed in there, and it's part of life's rich pageant. You know, I mean, the dumb, the intelligent, everything happens at once.
If we hadn't put that stuff on the record, people would have just taken it far too seriously, I'm afraid. It needed a little comic relief.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it is supposed to... Whoops. Sorry, kicking all the equipment here. It is supposed to be a mixture of all these things, and we want it to be a fairly wide record. You know, some of our records, people would complain that there's too much of one tempo or too much of one... texture. And this record, you cannot say that about this record. I mean, it runs the gamut. Yeah, it's funny because as we were sequencing them, they just seemed to cry out to be at the end of each side. And Superman particularly, with that long gap between it and the song before it, you know, here's this record and you've gone through it and the songs have been pretty varied and kind of serious, and then there's this kind of joyous end that's kind of just dumb and enjoyable, and just go, yeehaw, dance away. I love that song. I want to meet those guys in The Click, too. You met...
Some lady called a radio station I was at. She's married to the brother of one of the guys that wrote the song, and so when she calls back to the girl at the radio station, I think we might actually meet those guys. I don't know who they are or where they are, but...
I'd love to meet them. I don't know who wrote it or anything, but, you know, I mean, it would just be really cool to just show up. I wonder what they do, you know, where they own restaurants, or they work in a gas station, or, you know, I doubt they made $1 million and retired.
And the last thing in the world they expect is to hear that song pop up on somebody's record.
But that must be great. I mean, you know, I can imagine being, you know, 40 or something and sitting around the house and, you know, maybe teaching school or washing dishes, and someone comes in and goes, God, you know, someone just recorded your song.
Your 20-year-old song.
Yeah, great. It's just fun. You know, it's what we enjoy doing.
That's the best part of being in the band, is getting to play live. And it's what we do real well. I think it's you know, the main cornerstone of our success now is that we did go out and play everywhere and anywhere that we could. A lot of little towns where no bands ever went, and the people in that town really appreciated the fact that somebody would take the time and trouble to play in a little pizza parlor or a biker bar when normally the only rock and roll they could ever see was the big arena shows. And I think it's paid off in that the people that heard of us then and heard us the first time then were more than willing to support us throughout our career because of that.
There must be 10 towns that we went to, just like in North Carolina and, you know, Tennessee and stuff, where people go, gosh, you're the first out-of-town band that's ever played here, you know? We go, really? And I said, well, yeah, I think we had the Doobie Brothers in 1978. We go, yeah, all right. So, you know, and it really was, rock and roll was something that was out of touch with, you know, I mean, real people. I'm not one of those guys that, you know, says he lived in the street and all that. You know, I'm not a McDevill type guy that hung out, you know, on the corners in New York, but, you know, we were actually playing in real little places and people were seeing us. We're probably the first band some of those people saw who didn't have a record contract. And that didn't do, like, the hits of the day in the local disco or whatever. So, you know, it was a really neat thing. And we always played, for some reason, Tuesday night in discos, because Tuesday night was New Wave night. And, I mean, I don't know why. I mean, it just meant they could stiff the band. You know, we'd show up and we'd get paid $50 and, you know, be like, well, we don't quite have the money tonight. But so we did that all over the South, played Tuesday nights and then weekends. And we used to play this place called Fridays in Greensboro that was a pizza parlor. And it was about as big as this room, you know. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but it's about 10 by 15 or something. And you would cram up there on stage, and everyone would be cramming up front. And it was just weird.
It was great.
No one knew how to react. I think, you know, it really does help to go out and play, and then after the show talk to all the people that come, because it gives you a kind of an idea of why people like you. And I think a lot of bands kind of lose it somewhere, sometimes third or fourth, fifth album, because they tend to forget what they're good at and why. You know, they get all these great reviews. It's like, well, gee, we're geniuses. Let's make an art record, you know. And, you know, you should keep the creativity and the art part, you know, in the front. But, you know, you gotta remember, it's fun. And when it boils down to it, at the end of the day, it's a piece of black plastic this big.
That you can make an ashtray out of,
you know,
if you want to.
Yeah, and it's... How serious can you get? You spend 6 months and you get this thing in the mail and you hold it up and go, this is it. You know, if I leave it in the sun, you can't play it. And I always kind of wake up in the morning and think, gosh, you know, they're going to discover that phonograph records really don't work, and they're just going to stop working, you know. Like, you can't throw a curveball, so no one's going to throw curves anymore.
Right. Bumblebees shouldn't fly.
Yeah. Part one. Being a short history on the derivation of a pop band,
all it took was a party. We just decided to play for a party and have some fun. You know, wrote 10 songs, got 10 covers, and played for a friend of ours' birthday party. And that was it.
That's the kind of thing that happened in Georgia, in Athens particularly. The B-52s were notorious characters way before they're in a band. I mean, they're the guys that would stand in the corner wearing dresses, playing trombone and stuff, and that would just people, you know, blow people's minds. But, you know, then they started playing at parties, and it just made such complete sense. I mean, they played 2 parties, 1 club, and then they're famous. You know,
and they're in New York.
And moved to New York, bought a building, you know, all that kind of stuff. But that was just, it was kind of that time, you know, 1980, anyone could do anything. Sure, you know, a lot of painters that were in the art school just said, yeah, why not? You know, rock and roll's kind of a valid way to do this. And I came from the other perspective. I've always listened to rock and roll and just thought it'd be fun to do it. And, you know, why not play in someone's kitchen?
It was odd. People decided to have, at their parties, rather than play records, they would have the newest band to go play. And, you know, the idea then was dance, play something that everybody could dance to. And it was great because that's the first time I heard Love Tractor was at a party.
Right, and then they were in the stairwell of this guy's falling apart old, you know, Victorian house that was like, you know, boards hanging outside. There were these 3 guys crammed under the stairs playing. It's really neat.
Very loud.
Did Bill play with him that time?
No, that was Kit and Mark and
But
Mike.
he played, Bill was in Love Tractor, our drummer.
Very briefly. At the same time, he was in R.E.M.
For about 2 months, because their drummer left or something. I can't remember what the story was, but I think he played outdoors. Did he play that party where David Gamble had the beer? No, John Seawright had the beer he made. Everyone made everyone beer. Oh. It was like a garbage can full of this brown muck, and you dip in and have a cup, and about 4 cups, and you went crazy. I mean, the last thing I remember is David Gamble hitting Vanessa on the head with a shoe, and everyone's howling and yelling and rolling on the ground. There's Love Tractor banging away with Bill on drums. Yeah, I mean that's the kind of thing that most of us, you know, came up doing, playing at those kind of parties.
Athens was so totally unself-conscious at that time that people, you know, you could do anything and nobody would think twice about it. No idea that there was actually a scene going on.
we didn't give any forethought to it whatsoever, to being in a band and what we were going to do with our career. Career? I mean, that was a dirty word.
Hobby.
You know, it was what we did when we weren't working at the newspaper or the record store, or you know, Mike was an inserter at the Banner Herald, which isn't nearly as interesting as it sounds.
Yeah, working in the mailroom, it was no good.
He puts the ads in the magazine. You know, and we just said, yeah, let's do this. And as it slowly but surely kind of took over our lives, well, you know, I mean, none of us liked working this kind of jobs.
And we had to quit school. Darn.
Yeah,
that was the hardest part.
You know, I think Bill had his ticket home in hand when the band started.
You can't fire me, I quit.
So, you know, it was just, within a year, I guess, we were kind of like more or less professional band. Professional in the sense that we made our living.
We got paid for it.
But, you know, it was certainly not, you know, we didn't do this for fame and fortune. Although I like them both, you know. I'd rather have more fortune and less fame. Gosh, you know, I think the day that we actually thought about it was the day we signed the record contract with IRS. And I remember Mike and I were walking downtown going, God, you know, well, God, I'm sorry. I'm kicking this stuff all over the place when we move aside.
Walking down the street going, oh, this might actually happen. You know, something might work.
We were laughing and going, God, you know, we've got a record deal, you know, and that was totally impossible. I never knew anyone that had a record deal before the B-52s. It just didn't happen, you know. And we were walking and we were going, God, this is really great. Still, we had to go to the certain pizza place to drink, because that's where my girlfriend works. We didn't have any money. You know, it was like, hey, we're in a band, you know. This could really be something great.
Give us some free beer.
A free drink, we just signed a contract. And I guess that was the day that we said, yeah, we can do this for a while. But it probably wasn't even until a year or two after that that we realized that we'll probably do this forever. The Hindu love gods, who, what, and why? I would say why is the big question. We all like to have holidays from the band, but we all like to play music, and so they're working holidays. The Hindu love gods is Mike, and Bill Berry's side band with Brian Cook, who's the lead singer. And we learned as many three-chord songs as we can in one day, 2 days, and we play. And we made a little single. You know, it's not earth-shaking, it's fun. I'd like to make a couple singles a year with those guys. You know, obscure glam rock covers. We got a great mud song called Tiger Feet that I want to do.
It's real healthy to play with other people. If you just keep doing the same in the same band and the same songs, you develop this case of tunnel vision and you lose your perspective on what you're doing. So if you get out and do other people's songs and play with other people, it keeps you fresh.
Yeah, we've done a lot of side projects as far as not only the Hindu love gods, but been involved in production. Michael sings the Golden Palominos sometimes. Mike and I have done some outside work. Bill does a lot of fishing. And he brings that experience back to the band. And it's been great. You know, if we ever need a boat captain, you know, old Captain Bill, the fishing musician, will take over. But I personally like to learn more about the business. Not necessarily, you know, sitting in offices and learning the business, but I like to learn how to run a board, what it's like to be not the member of a band and you're producing a record. And, you know, it can only help. So all this stuff is real good for us, I think. And nothing is really conflicting with the band. It's not as if, you know, I produce a record on a label that sells 15,000 copies, and that's great for that label, but, you know, it's not as if it's cutting into my time or you know, any of my creativity. Mike and I have done a lot of production stuff.
Really? Peter just finished Dreams So Real, the Feelies album, which is great. I worked with Mitch on a band from Virginia called Waxing Poetics. Hopefully I'll be working with the Kilkenny Cats in December. Michael worked with Hugo Largo in the studio. It's really good. It's very healthy and a lot of fun to get in that side of the business.
And I like the idea that most bands, when they get kind of successful, kind of just forget where they came from in the, you know, they forget what it's like to be working in clubs. They forget what it's like to not have money and stuff. And I'd like to kind of make an effort at giving back something to the fans and the bands and, you know, the scene, more or less. So that we try to take bands on the road with us that aren't really well known, maybe, and try to, you know, if I help produce a record, even if my job stinks, it's going to sell a couple thousand more copies just because my name's on it. And as dumb as that is, you know, you can help out some good people. So, you know, I only work with people who know what they're doing and are good. And I learn a lot. But it also, it's our way of saying thanks, you know. I mean, rather than you know, swimming all day and riding around in limos, which none of us do anyway.
When did we do that? No.
When did we do that? Well, never. But, you know, it helps to reaffirm that, okay, these bands, we have something in common with. You know, I don't have anything to do with Kenny Loggins or Lionel Richie or, you know, all those people. I mean, that's, you know, nothing against them. They're fine people, I'm sure, you know, and they feed the poor and all that. But, you know,
they are the world.
They are the world, after all. But I have no interest in working with anyone like that. I'd rather work with people that are young, have new ideas, and need some help. You know?
People whose work you can respect. I mean, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Athens Inside Out is a great movie that these people from California heard, you know, came into Athens and said, well, there's a lot of interesting people there. Let's get them on film. It's really neat. I've seen it a lot. I like the way it turned out a whole lot. It's got, we're in it for a couple of songs. Flat duo jets, Dexter Romweber that steals the whole film. He's really amazing.
They took out my favorite reference in the film, though. Dexter was on the porch of some fraternity house playing with his band. They're all looking at him. And he goes, well, they didn't burn down Rome in a day, and you can't quit smoking marijuana in a week. And everyone just goes, what?
Okay.
You know, a totally great line. They had to cut it out, I guess. I don't know. But he does smoke pot, folks. Dexter Romweber.
And the barbecue killers are in it. They're tremendous. They didn't cut out their nasty bits. They're all over it. And they do a really good live song in a club, and they've got it on film. The girl's lifting up her shirt and doing all this great stuff. The Kilkenny Cats are in it. They look real good. Dream So Real is in it. Anybody else?
Can you lots of other people.
Howard Finster is in it. The Squalls are in it. The Reverend Ruth is in it. It really captures a lot of flavor of the South, a lot of the essence of what goes on around Athens and around Georgia.
The film is more about the town and not as much about music as you might expect. I mean, there were a lot of bands, but lots of poetry reading stuff.
Yeah, Jim Herbert is in it, and he talks about art and his approach to working with people like us.
And all these kind of eccentric visionary artists that live in and around Athens. You know, it's kind of more of a showing of what this town is like. And it's a weird little town in its own way. You know, it's a little backwater town, but it's full of kind of eccentrics, and every one of them gets their shot at being on screen for a minute or two. I think it's really fun, and it'll be kind of one of those things that'll be on the midnight movie circuit and college circuit and maybe cable TV, PBS, that kind of thing. I mean, you're not going to see it with Raiders of the Lost Ark at the drive-in or anything. But that's fine. It's not that kind of movie anyway. It's you know, a nice, subtle little film. It's not a beat you over the head type thing.